in looking at, I mean, you said, you've been doing this now at delivering happiness for 11 years. You have a lot of experience. You've seen a lot of different situations of what works, what doesn't work.
Hmm.
Are there one or two things that you feel maybe you've either personally applied it in your own company or you've seen clients apply with great success where uh,
Hmm.
it's a question or a conversation or something that they do or a way to reward, but for people who really want to have team members that feel like they're part of the company, that feel like they're doing the work that they should be doing, like really kind of creating that higher level of retention in the business so
Hmm.
that everybody is moving along together. Are there one or two kind of exercises or activities or things you haven't yet mentioned that you just found like, yeah, when we did this, or when I asked this one question, or when we, took everyone through this one exercise, like it was just such a game changer? Is there anything that kind of stands out to you that you feel as just a real powerful tool?
Yes, for sure. I mean, there's many exercises, and it really depends on where where everyone is at in their own way. But number one, I think one of the reasons why I wrote this book, Beyond Happiness, is that we have to be, as leaders, as authentic as we can to ourselves. And what that means, sometimes people as leaders kind of assume they know who they are,
Mm.
but it takes work to actually dig a little bit deeper and ask ourselves whether or not we're truly being authentic to who we are. So I think, to your question, number one is to ask yourself, are you willing to do the extra work in understanding yourself as a leader first?
Mm.
And then, so there's exercises in the book about like highs and lows, heartbeat exercises, like extrapolating, knowing that happiness is not always from the highs, is actually understanding our lows. And, for the last 2 years, everyone's gone through some sort of pain, loss, grief. And that's why I call the book Beyond Happiness, is because like being able to understand the gamut, the spectrum
Mm-hmm.
of when we know our highs, it's because we know our lows.
Mm-hmm.
And that expands when we get more real with ourselves. So that's number one. And then once we experience that as leaders, then sharing that exercise with the people that we lead, the people that we're colleagues with, our clients even, they'll appreciate that even that much more because we're being real. And the whole vulnerability thing, and like just Brene Brown talks about this very well.
Right.
um, that, in addition to the grit of like what Angela Duckworth talked about, is I think where we are right now. Like, number one, can we be true to that? Can
Mm.
we vulnerable to that? And then therefore ask the people that we work with, clients included, if they are willing to be that vulnerable too.
That, I mean, that's, yeah, my mind is like kind of racing with thinking of a lot of different points you're just making right now. But let's say I go through that own kind of assessment myself,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to get really clear on, everything that's meaningful to me, my North Star, all that kind of stuff. You're saying
Mhm.
that you should be open enough to go and share that with all of your team members, even share it with your clients. What would that look like? Is it like an email to a client, hey, Joe, hey, Jen, I just went through this process. Like, here's what I've discovered about myself. What do you think? Like, how would you suggest that people introduce that or bring up their findings with their team and with clients?
Well, number one, with teams, I think it's easier because you're working with them. I think that it is so it's part and parcel with the whole question of like, when do you commit to people? When do you commit to what your purpose is? And so that first exercise within ourselves is actually identifying our own purpose in a way and revisiting it, because even though if we had one, and if we had like a set of values before the pandemic, I think it's very important to revisit it now.
Mm.
And then being able to say, hey, team, this is what I've been seeing as to what can be more uh, connected in terms of what we're doing. And especially if we're, all remote, hybrid, etc. Future work is here now, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Is being able to say, look, I know this is a very difficult time. It still will be for like for an unknown time to come. But this is what I would like to introduce as to what I've known or seen. And
Mm.
that's like this part of the stories that I share in the book of how this can all work because we're in it together.
Yeah.
So that's for your team. And then with your clients, it's actually really interesting to say, um, because I think it's a differentiator now. With like when with companies that say we this is our purpose. HBR had a study within the last 2 years that showed that companies that explicitly stated their purpose are actually growing in revenue and more stable than ever than those that don't.
Mm,
And that's to me, especially during a pandemic, recession, etc. There's something to be said about that because I think the reset on everything, including humanity, it's like
yeah,
people just want to be people and
sure.
want to be heard and understood. So I think that's what we can do as leaders to initiate that conversation.
Yeah,